My guest today is going to be talking about them and what you need to know when you're going to go out to shop for these health insurance and life insurance policies. Harshvardhan Roongta of Roongta Securities, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to start by asking you, have you come across instances where premia have gone up for health insurance and life insurance policies?
Hey Alex, always a pleasure to be on the show. Yes, if you ask me, since the onset of this pandemic, we've seen that insurance companies have revised their premiums in general. So it's not that they're going to revise it for a particular person or an individual. In general, considering the claim ratios that they have, the claims that they have received due to pandemic, both life and general insurances, the premiums have been revised upwards in any case in general. Yes.
Okay, but having said that, I do want to ask you, and in conversations that we've had in the past, Harsh, you've said that insurance in certain cases is more important to buy than even making an investment. So if you're advising somebody, you would say go out and get insurance first before you actually go and invest something. One, why do you say that? And should prices of the premium that you pay for health and life insurance have a bearing on getting them in the first place?
Alex, you're right. We've had this conversation in the past where I said that insurance is a very, very important part of your portfolio. So, in fact, the first step of financial planning is to have adequate insurance. So, investments come in much later into the life of an individual. What is important to note and to understand is that you are at a certain level right now. So, if you're earning an X amount of money, you have certain savings accumulated over a period of time, and you have achieved a certain level in your life. Now, when you plan for investments, it is for something in future. But what happens in a situation wherein whatever you are earning today is not coming to your family? Now, that could happen because of death or because of disability. So you need to make sure that all that you're earning today is at least protected. The second element you have to keep in mind, in case of any hospitalization, all the savings that you accumulated till now can be completely exhausted only for that one particular ailment. So you need to preserve your savings as well, and then you think about the future. So in both these cases, an adequate insurance policy makes sure that the income continuity is there in case of disability. In case you're not there, your dependents get the income that you were generating. In case of hospitalization, you don't have to dip into your savings which have been kept for some other purposes. So yes, insurance is the first step of financial planning and should be bought, in the appropriate manner. You don't buy savings-based insurance, investment-oriented policies. You buy pure term policies. You buy Mediclaim. You buy disability insurances. So this is the kind of portfolio that you should consider, creating for yourself in the insurance requirements. Your second question was, should we look at pricing? Strictly speaking, not really, because the insurance is not an off-the-shelf product. It's not something like a toothpaste or a soap that you're purchasing, and it just is one commodity that you're picking up off the shelf. So it's not that. There are lots of things that go into comparing an insurance policy. The features, the coverages will be different. I mean, you will need to look at the claim settlement ratio of each company. You will need to also look at the balance sheet strength of an insurance company as to how capable an insurance company is to settle your claim in case you're not there or in case of hospitalization. So there are a lot of such features. On the feature side, if I may, highlight a few, there will be certain waiting periods. As in, if you're buying a Mediclaim policy, certain elements are not paid for in the first 2 years. The other company would say it is not paid in the first 4 years. So you need to keep all of these things in mind and then buy something that is suitable to you. So very strictly speaking, cost is not the only parameter to look at an insurance policy. You cannot say that anything that is the cheapest is the best. And with particularly regards to Mediclaim, where the premiums get revised during the term of the policy. So in case you bought something today, the insurance company can revise the premium in the future. Unlike a life policy, wherein whatever premium you're paying today, you continue to pay for the rest of your life. So in case of Mediclaim, the premiums change over a period of time. So what may look cheap today may not remain cheap in the future. So pricing, premiums, costs are not the only parameter while choosing an insurance policy.
In fact, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that cheapest is not necessarily the best, because especially in this case, Harsh, these are things that come into play at extremely traumatic times of your life, and you would want to have what you have paid for at that moment. And quite a few times, if you pay for a policy that is apparently cheap, you may not necessarily get what you have paid for. So, would you say that more than the price, more than anything else, the claim settlement ratio and the factors that you mentioned just now, in terms of the waiting periods, in terms of the coverage, in terms of ailments that are not covered, those are the items in the fine print that you absolutely must look at?
Yes, most certainly so. I mean, I have been having these kind of conversations with a lot of individuals who are looking to buy insurances, and the common factor that everybody tends to compare policies is on premium. So that is why I'm highlighting that there are a lot of things that you need to look at. So one of the another things that needs to be looked at is sublimits and copay. So in a health insurance policy, there could be a policy which says that they restrict the category of room that you can get admitted, and that can be a big restraint in current times where you know that the hospital, it's not your entirely a choice wherein you can choose the kind of category of room that you want. In the COVID times that we're looking at, getting admission into an hospital was becoming difficult. And then to go ahead and say that I want this category of room or that category of room was not possible. So better to have a policy which has no such restrictions, no such sublimits, no co-payment. So co-pay is another factor you need to look at. So if it's a 20% co-pay, which means that for every claim, 20% of the claim has to be borne by the policyholder. So you do not want any of these restrictions in your policy. So better to look at an insurance policy in a holistic manner rather than comparing it purely on premium basis.
Now, if you are talking about an insurance, this is needs to be looked at as a financial product that shifts the risk of something happening to you to somebody else, and therefore you are paying for that product. But there is an order of magnitude or a waterfall that you can look at in terms of what is most important to have, and then order it in terms of importance, right? So, what according to you is the first thing that you go out to get, and what else do you need to then do after that?
Well, Alex, in insurance is very difficult to estimate as to what is most important. So in fact, there is a basket of personal lines of insurances which are very important in every individual's life. So one is of course a life cover, which is in the form of a term plan that we talk about. Then there is a disability insurance, so which is nothing but saying that if an individual is permanently disabled, now this could happen because of an accident or because of an illness, or a health insurance, a Mediclaim particularly, which is if an individual gets hospitalized, then all the expenses relating to that hospitalization should be taken care of. So all of these kind of insurances are equally important. Why? Because we cannot say what tragedy will strike at what time. So for instance, suppose a person identifies life insurance to be the most important, buys a term plan, and gets permanently disabled. So the income stops in the other case as well. So term insurance is not going to pay out anything because the person is still alive, though he's disabled. So at the same time, you prioritize disability and life insurance, and something happens in the case of a hospitalization. So it's very difficult to put it in a hierarchy saying that this is most important and that is not. So I would put it under the category of saying that every individual has some basic needs, such as food, clothing, and shelter. Now, how do you decide what is more important? Is food more important, clothing more important, or shelter? If you have to pick something, it's very difficult to pick between the three. So I would just say extend this definition to say food, clothing, shelter, and insurance. So basically, food, clothing, shelter, and bima. These are the four basic necessities of every individual. Try and balance out. Try and get an adequate insurance as well in lines with your basic needs. However, having said this, if there is somebody who is facing absolute, kind of a distress in terms of liquidity to pay for all the policies, well, if I have to specify something, well, we can specify, but the intent is to then eventually catch up. So if you bought something today, only one policy, then please make sure that before you do anything else, you catch up on the other insurances. So I would say probably a Mediclaim, the health insurance being first on priority, a life insurance, a term plan, because of course the impact is going to be large in case you're not there, your family is depending on your income. So a Mediclaim first, a term plan, which is life insurance, second, and then a disability insurance, which is personal accident policies and critical illnesses. So this is just because you're asking for it, but if I may have to say, please make sure that you buy all the insurances appropriately and avoid, categorizing and prioritizing if you can afford all of them.
Okay, so that seems to be the aspect to focus on, right? Affordability. But you mentioned it very clearly. You're extending the basic necessities to include insurance as well. So I pretty much know what you're going to say to my next question, which is to say, can you get away with not having any of these insurances? And the reason I ask that, Harsh, is that if you do not have any dependents, of course, it does not make sense to have life insurance, right?
Yes, so in certain cases, you may not need insurances. So one is, of course, if you're looking at life insurance per se, if you don't have anybody financially dependent on you, then there is no meaning of having that insurance, because in case you're not there, there is somebody who's going to get that money and who was not dependent on you. So you don't intend to profit out of an insurance policy. So if you have no dependent, then there is no need to buy the life insurance at least. But disability insurance and mediclaim is important because you buy it for your own self while you're alive. You need that money. With regards to another situation, if there's an individual who has a lot of passive income, such as rent, they could have interest income, or you could have royalties. That will continue to come in, even if you are not professionally engaging yourself into work. So even in those cases, you may not need a life insurance for sure, because you have rents which take care of your family members, even if you're not there. So yeah, these are a few exceptional cases where you might not need insurances. But if you come to health insurance, I mean, the cases where people will not require mediclaim is that if you're an ultra HNI who has a couple of hundreds of thousand crores, and you can most certainly take care of yourself in that case. So the idea is, if you've provided, you have enough of corpus reserves or wealth for that matter, wherein you've got all your goals, aspirations, everything taken care of, then you may simply not think of buying an insurance policy, because if you buy a policy, you will buy for, say, probably an average insurance would be 5 lakhs, going up to, say, 20 lakhs, or in some cases 50 lakhs or 1 crore. And let me give you an example. It's very relevant in these times. I mean, after the massive success of this Zomato IPO, the co-founder Dipendra Goyal would be worth about a couple of thousand crores. Now imagine a situation, I mean, he insures himself for a 50 lakh insurance policy. I mean, he's really not dependent on his medical treatment for this 50 lakhs, right? I mean, he can very well take care of himself and his family members with the network that he has. So unless we all reach that kind of a stage wherein, we can take care of ourselves out of our reserves, I think it's better we all focus on mediclaim and quietly with our heads down buy the policy and make sure that we get ourselves good treatment.
Well, on that note, Harsh, let's actually hope, and that's the thing to hope for. Let me hope that my viewers actually end up creating that kind of wealth for themselves, so that they don't have any worries as far as funding their health requirements are concerned. But thank you so much for taking the time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you as always. Do take care.